Okay.
So that
that-
might mean.
Are we alive now? Live? Oh, good.
Yes, we are a little bit, but there's only you and I in here at this moment, so that's okay. That's happened before. So what we can do is, if I see someone join us, I'll just say welcome. We're just in practice mode. Thanks for joining us early.
Yeah,
That's okay. I don't
that's
know why
fine.
that stopped. Why did that stop? That's okay.
So
And we'll
it's
cut it
either
out of the
changing
recording,
around.
so that will be fine.
Yep. And then this one here.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Alrighty.
We're having
So,
some
yep.
adventures, as my big boy would tell me.
Oh,
Have
we
some
are.
adventures, Mum. I'm like, I do.
Now, the funny thing here though is that now why are these flipped now? Okay. Oh goodness. Okay. Yeah.
And
Okay.
if worst case scenario, like I'll refer them to the education library. So
Yeah. Sure. No, it should be fine. Okay. So, all right, Theo. So there we go. That one there. I'm going to move up here. All right, Theo. Can you still see that main page there of the presentation only, or do you see my notes?
let me just reshare it with you. I think it's just no, it should be. No, it should be fine now.
Should be fine now. Okay.
Yeah, I'll redo it for you just in case.
Yep. So show
There
my
we go.
screen. Yep. So therefore, what we're seeing now on your side though, as an attendee.
Yes,
I seem to have. Yep. Okay. So I can see my actual background there.
Yes, I can see your background.
Yes. Okay. All right. That is not what I want.
Yeah. I'll need a wine tonight.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
No, we'll be
This is what I
fine.
want to show. But why is it
Still
not
only
letting
you
me
and
do
I
that?
here. Fine.
Yep. Oh, silly thing.
I'm just writing my notes for my
Yep.
so the survey questions box and that we're being recorded.
Yep.
And that's it. Okay. Yeah, so I can see the presentation now.
Yeah.
But with you.
That's right. Swap. How's that now? There
perfect.
we go.
Yes.
Got it. Woohoo!
Perfect. Woohoo!
Yes. Yay. Now,
There.
now the tricky thing is now. Okay, it's going to see. You can shift this here out
Go
of the
the
way.
videos.
Oh no, I'm gonna get videos. That's right. Moment of truth.
Yeah. I can hear music.
How's that sound now? Did that work?
I can hear it. It's just a little bit, if we could turn it up a little bit.
Okay, sure, because it's very loud on my side here already. Let me see if
Many young people identify as being in the LGBT.
Yes, that's it. Perfect.
Perfect.
That one's good.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, so I put it onto full there. I'll make sure I take my kind of headphones off when I get to it, so I don't get deafen myself.
Yeah. Don't know why.
And I turn it back down to this level here. Oh, you know what?
I'm checking my volume. No, my volume's up.
No, I was thinking, okay, is it because of my volume on my computer? Could that be it?
Maybe, yes, because I've just checked mine as well, because I thought, oh, maybe it's, but it was Olivia's husband as well, wasn't it? But
yeah, that's right. Now, why am I not seeing that?
wouldn't it be good if they did these? Do they do these courses at school? Because I've heard of like a lot of parents really distressed when their child's going through like changes and not knowing where to turn, or you know what I mean? Like,
there we
for
go.
the parents.
Here it is. Is that
there we are. Yes.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So even when I'm talking now, can you hear me better now too?
Okay, can you hear me now too?
I can hear really well. Yep, you're just very loud. I know I'm very loud normally, but
Oh my, so am I. And I've sent
uh,
myself half deaf from all those concerts I've been at.
I'm just going to play this one more time. Sorry, just going to try and see if it'll work.
Yep,
Is that working?
it is. It's soft too, though.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's on full now.
Yeah, no, that's better. That's good.
Okay.
Wonder why.
Well, if that's the case, hang on. There could be something else here then. Because my speakers. Okay. Let's see if I can edit that and look at the sound balance. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Back to your question before. Are they doing this in schools? And the answer is there is actually what's called a safe schools program, but that was
Okay.
actually really heavily criticized because it really was not achieving what they were meant to achieve. So
Oh,
that's why it
okay.
was really sad. And in fact, for some schools, they actually perpetuated, if not exemplified, the actual discrimination and bullying that happened already normally.
Right. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, maybe this one here. Oh, hang on. Huh. Okay, let's try this.
Yeah, that's good.
So what I just clicked this then was that in the audio pop-out, there was an option to, oh, it's gone now, there's a different spot there for it.
But I don't think the captions are coming up on it.
Yeah, that's right. Captions, I can turn back on again afterwards. Yep. But there was an option there to actually turn off noise suppression, and it was saying that noise suppression, when turned
Oh,
on, will actually help with the actual sound of the actual person talking. However, for videos, it will actually impact on the actual sound quality of the video going through. By unchecking it, it will actually
okay.
make it a bit better. So that now, can we escape? If I can do this now, I'm sorry about this. Let's see. Okay. I was going to try and see into the video that ended that we were looking at, especially, and see if that would actually make that any better.
I'm just going to turn my phone down in case it
Yeah.
often starts buzzing once the
Um,
webinar starts with people trying to
yeah.
lock in or having audio issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I've got that.
Can you hear it now?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome.
Music? Is there any audio?
Sweet.
Like
Yeah.
speaking?
There's no speaking. There's only music in the background.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Yay.
Oh, that's good.
Brilliant. I'm surprised that Olivia didn't want to speak. Okay, because she did all that work on
Yeah,
all
I
the
am
technical
too.
services at the end there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
because people are going to
that looks
cry to
great.
hear my
It
voice the
looks
whole
really
an hour and
interesting.
a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, that's going to be
Cool.
great.
Yep. But
All
yeah,
right.
coming back
Well,
to your previous question there, yes, so there was a safe schools program, but it depending on the school, unfortunately, it wasn't actually the most well received or well presented, and therefore it didn't really hit the mark. And unfortunately, because of that, a lot of people also have troubles because each person who goes through this journey has their own struggles in their own ways, and therefore
yeah.
it doesn't. So therefore, it's not really a one-size-fits-all kind of system there, which makes it really tough, of
Right.
course. So that's why having someone who they feel comfortable talking to, who they feel they can trust, really helps to make a big difference when it comes to people who may be feeling that they are different to those around them, which they are, because of the way they
Yeah.
actually the way they actually interpret themselves and the way they actually see themselves and those around them. They know that there's something different about themselves, but being able to actually then support them to actually be their true authentic self, like we
Yeah.
all want to be as well too, and we all strive towards, that's often the key to actually help them gain that greater acceptance in themselves. Because imagine that you're living each day there thinking that you're a different person
I
to
know.
yourself, having to put a mask on every single day or every moment in your life
Horrible.
there. It'd be
Yeah.
awful. Absolutely
It
horrible.
would really be awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel for the kids. My youngest is
Yep.
11,
Mm.
and at least this generation, I think, is coming through more aware and
Yep.
um, accepting and
Yeah.
educated on it.
Yep.
I hope that we've
I
seen
hope
a
so too.
massive change in this generation that's coming through to help
Hmm.
change things. I mean, even the pronouns and stuff like that,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, becoming more
Yep.
common, and people are thinking about things and
Yep.
showing respect for everybody as well. So
And hey, even I slip up sometimes on pronouns, and
yeah,
it happens. And in the but the thing though is that the most important thing though is just making sure that you apologize and then move on, and hopefully that's going to be, if we actually are genuine in our way of actually doing so, we can
exactly.
communicate
Yeah.
that to our young person or a gender diverse person, and they will actually also appreciate that we're trying, like, we're trying to make changes
Yeah.
to the way we normally do
Yeah.
things, and they can't, but
Yes.
and as long as see us trying, though, that's the kind of most important part. So yeah, because in preparation for this presentation here, I actually I actually interviewed so many of my gender diverse friends and colleagues, and
Yeah.
trying to get their input about this. And one of the things that was actually said by one of my colleagues is that they have a child who is transgendered, and so they were saying that it's not the trans person's job to educate the actual healthcare workers. We should be the ones who actually should
That's
have the actual
right.
knowledge and know-how to be able to look after their needs. And that's and why is it actually important for us to actually have our gender inclusive care is because when we do misgender a young person, it actually means that you are reinforcing for them that they are not welcome, they are not actually
Yes.
accepted. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that can actually then have secondary impacts there, where they would often feel they're much more isolated and unloved or unlovable, and
Yeah.
therefore it creates a psychological or a mental health injury as a result of that. So,
It's
because
hard
all of
enough
us
being a
strive,
teenager,
that's the thing.
like growing up, isn't it? It's hard
Yeah.
enough without
Oh, absolutely. And all
not
of us
having.
strive towards acceptance and be actually
Yes.
be appreciated as a, yeah, and to be anything different actually is is hard, so
It's
hard. Yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
A pimple on your face is a traumatic experience at that
Yeah.
age too. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
An eyelash out of place, let alone a freckle
And all the girls
or
have got
pimple.
all the fucking eyelashes now, so they're
I
all,
know.
oh, and the lips. I hate the lips. They're
Yeah.
horrible.
Put in pouch. Oh
Right.
dear. Oh dear.
Um,
But
but
yeah.
their own, I guess. But yeah, I think it's well. I nearly wrote an email the other day, like
Oh yeah.
just to work colleagues, and I nearly wrote "Hello, ladies," and then I thought,
Yeah.
you know what, that's inappropriate, Mel. Like,
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, some of us, okay, some of us will actually laugh it off. So, for example, okay, I
Yeah.
myself, before I did medicine, I was physio, and
Yep.
physiotherapy in the hospital, it's a very female-dominated area, and so, and
Yes.
as a
Yes.
result, therefore, like, I was an honorary girl in the actual in the department, and that's okay.
I've got a few
I really
male
don't mind
friends
one
that are,
bit.
yeah. I've got a few male friends that's the same. Did you do a physio? Were you up here?
No, I was down in North Shore, so yeah, so
My
I didn't
nephew
work
is
up here as a physio.
my
Sorry?
nephew's a physio, and he was in practice
Oh,
at Manly for a long time. Phil
oh yeah, yeah.
Coles, you don't know Phil Coles, do you? He then
No,
worked
I
for
don't,
like
unfortunately.
um, Newcastle Knights, and then the
Hmm.
Socceroos. and he's gone
Cool.
on now. He did a big soccer team in England, and now he's
Yeah,
in
that's
NBA
brilliant.
and basketball.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
he
Yep.
loves it.
Yeah, so many
Yeah,
people in physiotherapy will actually crave to have a job working with a sports team, but unfortunately, it's really hard to come by those jobs, and
yeah. It's all about
it's
contact.
also
Well,
really demanding as well too.
he's probably similar age to you actually, because like
Yeah.
my sister, there's 20 something years between us. So,
Yep.
yeah, he's late 30s, early 40s. Yeah,
Yep.
he's just found his dream job, and he
Mm.
just loves it so much. So,
Hmm.
we've got to get out. Who's he with now? Is with the Celtics, the
Oh yes.
basketball, the
Yes.
Celtics. Yeah. So we've got to get over there and
Awesome.
see them once all
Yeah,
this stuff
absolutely.
comes down. Yeah. Heading,
Absolutely.
yeah. He was in Texas before that. It was some team, but I wasn't that
Yep.
keen to go to Texas. I was like,
Yeah, no.
yeah,
It's a bit different. Just a
I
little bit
was
different.
probably Texas. I was like, they would do something wrong in Texas.
Uh,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's a very
Oh,
physical job to do. Our CEO was a physio
it
as
is very,
well.
yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep. So that's the thing. Like, it is a very physical job, and that's that was also part of the reason why I left as well too, and I was given the opportunity to actually go into medicine, because yeah, I really didn't see that many old physios, and I think a
yeah,
lot of them do actually shift to different areas, or because they actually are burnt out physically from their role that you do in the hospital there, and so and
yeah,
I was actually quite interesting because being at North Shore, I was really hoping to go down the path of going into spinal cord injuries, and that is
yeah,
very, very, very physical, because the majority of patients, even if they wanted to, most of them couldn't help you, because of the injury.
yeah,
But the
yeah,
interesting thing I got from that though was that the reason why I loved it so much because it was so complex,
yeah,
and you need to really draw from your knowledge from all areas, and to really have a really holistic approach to the person, and that's
yeah,
what I actually really enjoyed the most, and not just only working with the person, but the whole family as well too, because often
yeah.
they go through a massive period of grief there as they process what's happened. Most of them are
Yes,
young men, my age or younger,
yeah,
and they've now actually had a life-changing injury, where all their
yes.
dreams, aspirations that they
Everything's
had,
gone.
their
Yeah,
parents had for them, all that happened from now being smashed, and they're trying to pick up the
yeah,
pieces there, and yeah,
yeah.
it's a really,
Heartbreaking.
really cool area. Heartbreaking for sure, yep. But I think that
Yeah,
is also
yeah,
really rewarding as well too when you actually get to work in that area and actually see people make those awesome
good.
gains. But yeah,
Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, that's my
Um,
background.
oh, we've got a third party joining
Oh,
us.
is that
Olivia, I
Olivia?
think.
Sorry, I'm a few more
Hello,
minutes.
Olivia, and Olivia's husband.
Hello.
Hello. Is that all?
Hello.
You can hear us?
We can hear you.
Yes.
We can most definitely
Okay.
hear you, and we can see you as well too.
Yes.
Yep, everything's clear. Now, where do you want me to take the dogs?
Out.
Out. Don't touch any buttons, all right?
I won't touch anything. I just moved to another chair.
Hi, Olivia.
Yeah,
We've
get a comfy chair for herself.
we've sorted.
Have you had dinner?
I did.
Oh, good.
I just got a taller chair. Is that too tall?
You might have to adjust your camera a little bit so I can see the top of your head that way.
How's
That's
that?
better. Beautiful. You can see it now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I'm looking at my lighting here as well too. Should I actually might have to turn this on a bit brighter.
I've got the window open, and it's just. But you'll
Yeah.
see me darker and darker and darker.
Well, my window's on my right hand side here, so yes.
Any luck with the videos, Gordon?
Yes, we go to work. So
Awesome.
so what we worked out was that we had to really crank the volume right up. So when I do play the videos, I had to take my headphones off so I don't deafen myself. And that works.
Awesome.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm just gonna try something else here as well too. If I can actually turn this one on. Oh, there you go. Is that any better? Yeah, I think
That's
that's
yeah.
more
much
even.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got my lights above me on now. That's
That's con-
that's
So
better
it's
too. Yeah.
mainly GPs tonight, but I did see there is one or
Yep.
two nurses as well. So
Yeah. So I know Laurie's signing on tonight. She said.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be coming along. I believe one of my friends, who's a psychologist, she's coming on as well too.
Great.
So, yep,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
because
is really
she
good.
does a lot of work already with gender diverse young people working over in augmentia health. But
Great.
yeah, I know her other half as well too, so they're both jumping on together.
Oh, that's great. And we've got 32 registered, so that's really good because
32.
it's just
Woo!
Central Coast. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Oh, okay.
local. Yeah, so that's a
Brilliant.
great number.
Because I wanted
Yeah.
to find out as well too, if it was only just Central Coast or was it actually Newcastle as well or the greater area?
Because of the LHDs, we've gone with Central Coast on this one. So
Yep.
yeah,
Cool.
but anyone will be able to access it in the library as well.
Yeah.
We just get a
Sweet.
lot of feedback when we do a Central Coast like LHD related event that the pathways and things like that, referral pathways and
Yeah.
stuff aren't relevant to like Tamworth
Yep.
and Armidale. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
this one is for Central Coast, which is good because we need more,
Mm.
local education as well.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
More the better platform than PHN, you know.
yeah,
Hmm. Oh, I
yeah.
must say, I didn't mention the health pathways here. Like, I hope I don't get shut down for that.
Oh, that's all right. Normally they would invite, like they would come, like they would say, "Oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna hop on," but they haven't
Yeah.
today. So
Do you know why? Do you know why though?
yeah,
Do you know
they might
why?
be in the audience though.
Because
And we are live, Olivia.
there's
I think I
nothing
accidentally
for.
pressed a button. I don't know what I
Oh.
did. I don't know what I did. So, but that's fine. So when I
Cool.
see, I know it's just the three of us here at the moment,
Yep.
but when I see
Sweet.
those numbers coming up, I'll just say welcome. Thanks for hopping on early.
Yeah. Sure.
We're just getting ready to start. So grab a
Yep.
coffee.
Sounds good. I got my apple going. Like,
Yeah.
that's gonna be going.
Oh, too funny.
I got my coffee as well too. I hope I'm still gonna get some sleep afterwards. Okay, if you hear me talking very quickly, you know why.
Coffee. I can't drink it. I
Yeah.
think I need to
Oh.
come down and go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
drink
Sometimes
coffee.
I overshoot with the coffee itself. I then crash on the other side. So yeah. Oh, did you ever remember that cartoon? It's called I think Hoodwinked. It's called. Do you remember that cartoon? Hoodwinked.
Over the.
Uh, Hoodwink.
I do. Yes. Hoodwink.
Yes.
Yes.
There was
Yes.
a guy. There's a squirrel in there, and my friends used to laugh at me because they remind me of the squirrel, like talking at hyperspeed when they have had coffee.
I get tired, so I do need something, but yeah, I just can't do it. I get the jitters. I can't do this.
uh,
My eldest
no.
son thinks it's the funniest thing to give me coffee.
How old are they?
So I've been married twice. So my eldest son is just turned 30. Just
Oh,
got
okay,
married.
sure.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, congrats.
I had him young. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And then we tried for ages and ages and ages, and we finally had our little Finn in Fiji. We
Yeah.
gave up. We did everything to try and have him. And then we gave up. We went to Fiji, had a holiday, and
Yeah.
came back. Finn is in our life. So yeah,
Yeah.
this
That's
is funny.
awesome.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
psychological. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it actually really does impact on our fertility and our likelihood of carrying the baby as well to term.
Yeah,
So yeah,
interesting.
plays a big part indeed.
We tried everything. We went to a naturopath in the end, Catherine
Yep.
Chan, and she's amazing, amazing.
Cool.
And my husband stuck to that, and I didn't. And then
It's always the other way around,
I
isn't
was
it?
drinking Mars bars and a glass of wine, and he's religiously sticking to her, whatever she was telling him, even though he didn't really believe in it. He was like, I don't believe this. But anyway, whether it was coincidence or whether we were just distracted, I don't know. But we did fall pregnant with that. So yeah,
No, that's
life's
great.
funny. Life's
Life
funny.
is really funny that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Maybe that was our journey. I don't know. I don't do things the easy way. Oh, my girlfriends. I went to school in Sydney at Hunts Hill and Catholic school there for all girls. And
Yep.
at the Mardi Gras, a heap of the girls that I went to school with, they were the ABBA. They were the ABBA float, and I'm like, oh my god, that was just my dream. I used to sing ABBA all the time. You know,
The Dancing Queen.
Yes, that was my dream. So they said they promised me they'll invite me next year. So I'm going next year on the float. But I said, but I want to wear ABBA. for the other.
You'll get there one day. You will. You'll be just fine.
I'm so going. Because my sister-in-law has Coletto's at Newtown.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the cocktail bar, yeah, Coletto's. So
Yeah.
they have a massive celebration. So yeah, I've been a couple of
Cool.
times to that, but I really need to go I'm going in that. It's a life goal. It's a life
Yep.
goal. Achieve
No,
that.
love it. Love it, love it, love it.
I'll have some fun. Might head to Paddington to start, and then yeah, I miss Sydney sometimes.
Yeah.
It
Mm.
is beautiful up here though. But,
We are so
yeah,
lucky up here, seriously. Yeah.
yeah. We've
I
lost
also
Olivia.
go- Yeah, we
We've
have.
lost her.
Hmm.
She's
I
coming.
went to grab a coffee.
Yep, yep.
Went to grab a coffee. Hello?
I might just
Hey,
sit downstairs
Olivia.
and grab a water. I'm just going to go grab a
Yeah,
water.
what's, yeah. All good, all good. Our
Just us
Manafort.
three. It's still just us three. And you'll be able to see Gordon because you're an organizer how many's in there.
Yep.
But just us
Yep.
three at the moment. It's all good.
Yes. All good. No
All
problems.
right.
Thank you.
I'll be back.
Yep.
Gordon, thank you
Yes.
very much for this
Oh,
tonight.
don't be silly. That's
Just
fine.
amazing person.
That's
And
fine.
morning tea next Monday is on me, okay?
You're gonna make me fat. Don't do it. Don't do it. I've been trying so hard to lose weight.
Even if you're fat.
All this money I'm putting in towards my gym program is all going to go.
You saw how my husband is big. He always tells me he used to be a jockey before he married me.
Oh, really? There you go.
No, he didn't, Gordon. He just used to say that. He says that to people. I used to be a jockey before I married her. But no,
No.
no, he was not.
Just to check us out too, on your screen there right now, can you see the
Yeah.
panel on the side there?
I can see the panel, yes.
Yes. So I was just going to try and see if you can turn that off then in that case and try and shift it out of place. Can you still see it now? Is the panel still
Yeah.
minimized on the side there?
It's
I wonder,
just
if I
on
can,
the end.
I wonder how can I do that? Okay, let me do that there and see if now. Okay. I'm gonna try and see if I can move that out of the way so therefore we don't have that there anymore. Yay! That works.
No, I still got it.
Still got it? Now is it gone?
No, still there.
Still there? How
Still
bizarre.
there.
Because not on my screen now. So can you see the presentation or the panel where they actually got their controls are?
The presentation is this side and the panel with the controls is on this side, on my right-hand side.
Okay. Oh, okay, sure. I think you're seeing it because okay, yeah, sure, sweet. I think it's because you have it on your screen there because you have your own panel there to control your side with.
Okay, all right,
That's why.
fair enough.
All good,
Yeah.
all good, all good. Yep, coming back as well too. Oh, stop recording there.
Thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to acknowledge the local custodians of the land in which we meet and honour elders past, present and emerging. I'm sitting on the beautiful north of Oka Beach, Dark and Jungland, and thank you all for being here with us this evening. I'm Melissa Wilkinson, the Primary Health Network Education Team. Just a little bit of housekeeping to go through. You will have a survey pop up at the end of the session. I strongly encourage you to please complete that. This is the way we get our feedback and data so that we can produce more education for you and align it to your needs and wants as well. We encourage you strongly to also please use the question box. We're going to have a little section at the end where we'll go to the presenters for questions. So this is your chance to ask those burning issues that you'd like brought up, and we welcome that as well. We are being recorded tonight and will be available in the Education Library. Certificates will be issued for those that attend live though, so that's a great resource as well. It gives me great pleasure to thank both Dr. Gordon Liao and Olivia Gregg for being here with us this evening. It's lovely to have you both here, and thank you so much for such an important topic. It'll be a very interesting night tonight, I think, as well. We're going to cover some great stuff and the presentation looks amazing. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Olivia. Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you, Mel. Good evening, everybody. My name is Olivia Gregg. I'm the clinical nurse consultant and GP liaison for child and adolescent mental health in Gosford. It's with great pleasure I have Dr. Gordon Lau today and the PHN on board with this amazing topic that is so relevant to every health clinician, whether on the central course or at any LHD. Fortunately for us at CAMS, we do get to see a lot of presentations for young persons with gender diverse. We do the best we can, but tonight Dr. Gordon Lau has got an amazing presentation that will talk to a lot of the GPs and also to other health professionals that are logged in tonight. Just a quick word, Dr. Lau tonight is not going to touch on the medication component. I have some great news that on the 26th of April, we will have Dr. Yolandi Goodyear, who has kindly accepted to do a presentation for the GPs on the central course. She will be talking about the medication component, the hormone blockers, and starting the process. Dr. Goodyear is head of the Maple Leaf Clinic in Newcastle, and she is an amazing lady who's got an amazing wealth of knowledge within this subject. So thank you everybody for joining tonight. It's with great pleasure I present Dr. Gordon Lau, and I leave the screen to him. And thank you very much, Dr. Lau, for that. I am eternally grateful.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you, Mel, and thank you so much for the warm welcome as well too. I also want to welcome everyone here tonight to our presentation on supporting gender diverse youth. My name is Gordon, as you heard, and I'm a cisgendered male who prefers he, him pronouns. But before we do dive into the topic, I would like to take a moment to make a quick acknowledgement to country. Oops. Okay, cool. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we are logging in from today, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. As a part of Central Coast mental health team, we are committed to a diverse and also socially inclusive community. So this includes of course, our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but also people who identify as being gender diverse, people of all ages, people with disabilities, and also people who come from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. So tonight, we're going to be spending about an hour and a half here tonight, and this is my outline of my presentation. We're going to look at a few different very important topics when we are talking about supporting gender diverse persons. So you may actually be wondering, why are we talking about this topic today? And why am I talking about this one here as well too? As Olivia says, I am a GP who's currently working on the Central Coast, and I also work part of my week at Headspace in Gosford. Olivia works next door to me at CAMS, the Children and Adolescents Mental Health Service, as our GP liaison officer on the coast. And between us, we do see a lot of young people who are doing it tough with their mental health, and many of them do identify as gender diverse. Yet, despite having a huge group of people who actually do require that input, we don't have any specific gender services like we do over in Sydney or in Newcastle. That's the reason why I'm looking forward to sharing a bit of my knowledge and experience with yourselves to hopefully, as GPs, as a team, be able to actually improve what we actually currently do to better cater for the needs of the vulnerable population group in the community that way. I would also like to acknowledge that this is a sensitive topic, so apologies in advance if we do trigger any negative emotions or distress in any way. The fact that I have you all here tonight is actually awesome because it shows me that you are keen to learn how to make a difference to the lives of gender diverse people that you care about. And for that, I want to thank you now for doing so. However, if you do become triggered, please feel free to go for a walk or take a break from the presentation if you need to. But please check in with us afterwards so we can see what we can do to help, if there is anything we can do at all. On that note, let's dive into the topic a bit further. So first of all, what are the statistics? Because in a population like Australia, where we have 24 million people, we actually pride ourselves in Australia from being a very multicultural community. And we have people coming from about 200 different countries from around the globe. In this group here, many of us do speak more than one language. Many of us are born overseas. But what is striking though is that despite that, about 11% of the community identifies being sexually diverse or gender diverse in some way. And did you know that this is actually the equivalent to the number of people in the community who are left-handed? Interesting, right? So it's actually more common than you actually think. Also, as well too, if we look at this number there, the actual 11 in 100 people who identify as being gender diverse, we can also see a further breakdown in the statistics. Sadly, 39% of people who do identify as being gender diverse hide their sexuality or their gender identity at work. 42% hide it in their social and community events, and 34% hide it when accessing services. You might ask yourself, why is this the case? And that's because, unfortunately, many have experienced verbal, physical, and other forms of trauma in the past due to their identification. And sadly, this actually happens all the way from the actual very beginning of their actual lives there. And in fact, 80% of bullying in the schoolyard actually occurs around the actual topic of homophobic bullying. And as a result, people who identify as being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgendered are 3 times more, if not greater, more likely to experience depression. So with this in mind as well too, what can we actually do? And this is what we're going to dive into this topic a bit further and explore that. But before we work out what we can do, why don't we try to look at ourselves first, understand where we come from ourselves, from our different backgrounds. Because since we are culturally and linguistically diverse, we often do carry a lot of things that we have learned or are brought up with, different cultural values and expectations or ways of approaching things that we may have actually learned or adopted from our parents. So I want to get you to do one quick activity for me if you can. And I want you to take a moment here to reflect. What are your cultural or family views about those who identify as gender diverse? But also as well too, what are your community's views about those who identify as gender diverse? Once you have done that, can you also have a reflection about what are your own thoughts about people who identify as being gender diverse? And lastly, how do you feel when you have a patient who identifies as gender diverse? Because a lot of the times there, these cultural values and thoughts may not actually be founded upon solid facts about what is actually the truth in the community. And these myths themselves, unfortunately, can be perpetuated in some shape or form. And therefore, when we are considering our gender diverse persons, these stigma and minority stress really leads to a reduction in their ability to access or feel welcome to access primary care services despite their higher healthcare needs. Negative attitudes like these towards a group of people can be also much worse as well too, in some rural communities or outer urban areas, but also as well too amongst more conservative cultural and also faith groups as well. So that's the reason why it's really important for us to first appreciate stigma in our greater community, but also any stigma in ourselves to then break that stigma and hopefully seek a more just community that way. Talking about stigma, talking about all these kind of issues there, we need to also then mention, of course, discrimination. Discrimination itself can be overt, but it also can be subtle. But both of these forms of discrimination still hurt just the same. And so in order for us to actually help gender diverse persons break that stigma, we need to then, of course, first address the discrimination there. And what we can do is to, where appropriate, speak up against discriminative behavior or discrimination in general. Being mindful as well too of our own language and avoid using any discriminative terms. Also, make sure we don't make assumptions about gender diverse persons and fall down into our stereotypes. But also as well, in there is the important kind of issue of learning and having that exchange of knowledge there. If we can actually learn more about the issues faced by gender diverse persons and help others do so, we can then create a more just community. Last but not least, it's also important for us to also use our gender neutral language to promote acceptance and also to use the gender diverse person's preferred name to also make them feel more comfortable in our presence. So all these things themselves can be used to help to end that stigma that I mentioned before. So why fight the stigma? It's because stigma can stop people from seeking help. And therefore, as health professionals ourselves, it's really important for us to be very mindful of the potential impact as a clinician, because if you actually had a person who actually felt uncomfortable in your presence due to the way you treated them, it can last a very long time. So, as I rehashed those points before, if we can actually improve our education in ourselves, be polite and listen and actually be there to actually understand and seek to understand the person in front of you. Also to engage with compassion as well. That can actually help us gain information ourselves and also to share information as well about this to help to stop the stigma. Just in case you were wondering why I included that picture on the bottom of the screen there, I chose that because it reminds me of a reference my grandma actually made. Um, she used to say, if you look at your hand there, no two fingers on each hand are the same. You don't judge them for being different because they all work together and each have their own role to play. So why judge other people who appear different to you? So I'm going to leave that with that thought. When we're talking about fighting stigma, it's also important to actually look at two very, very important core features there, which can be our stepping stone towards doing so. And these are understanding gender diversity and also understanding the use of pronouns in gender diverse persons. I'm just going to play you two videos here to help you understand what does LGBTIQA plus mean, because we tend to use that term nowadays to understand that topic further. I'm just going to play it for you now.
Young people all over Australia are trying to figure out who they are. For many, that means exploring their gender identity and sexuality. And it can be a really challenging experience. But having the right words to express how you're feeling can make it a whole lot easier. Many young people identify as being in the LGBTIQA plus community. But what exactly does that mean? L is for lesbian. That's when someone who identifies as a woman is attracted to other people who identify as women. If you're gay, you're someone who's attracted to people who identify as the same gender. Bisexual people are interested in two or more genders. If you're transgender, it means you don't identify with the gender you were assigned at birth. An intersex person means a person is born with chromosomes, reproductive organs or genitals that don't fit the narrow medical or social expectations for what it means to have a male or female body. Q is for queer, a word the LGBTIQA plus community has reclaimed as a proud way to say they don't fit into cisgender or heterosexual roles. Asexual people experience little or no sexual attraction, but they may still be interested in romantic relationships. There are many other ways people can identify and express themselves, and the list keeps on growing. That's where the plus comes in. So if you're feeling a little confused, that's okay. But if life becomes overwhelming, Headspace is a safe space for you to come and talk about everything you're going through. We've helped thousands of young people from the LGBTIQA plus community get the vital support they need. To find out how Headspace could help you, visit our website now at headspace.org.au.
So now that we know a little bit more about what LGBTIQA plus mean, let's look at our next video here talking about pronouns and why they are important.
Pronouns are the words that we use in places like this game. Pronouns are
Okie dokes. So you just saw how come our LGBTIQA plus and understanding what that actually means is so important to young people around us and also older people as well too who identify that way. But also as well too the role of pronouns as well is also really important as well. Why is it important, you might ask? It's because if we do actually misgender a gender diverse person, it reinforces that they are not accepted by the greater community. And that can therefore create a lot of mental distress. And that can then flow on, have a cascading effect as well too, to then actually snowballing into a much greater psychological injury in the future, if that's the case. Oops, okay, let's get it. So yeah, so therefore, now that you know what LGBTIQA plus stand for, we can see that in our population there, as I mentioned before, about 11% of people identify as being LGBTIQA plus, and that's a rough breakdown of that according to a few of the studies I've read. You may actually be surprised as well too to see that intersex people here are coming in about 1.7% of the population. That is the same number of people who have red hair in the community. So you may say, but I don't think I've ever met a person who actually is intersex. But what I'm actually going to actually tell you is that you probably have, and if you didn't ask, you wouldn't have known. So in order to improve our engagement with people who do identify as being LGBTIQA+, it is important for us to do what's called, practice what's called inclusive healthcare. And there actually are guides available in the community to help us look at different aspects that we can improve on to improve engagement in the LGBTIQA+ community. Just like we have a training for our cultural competency in regards to looking after Indigenous persons in the community, this is also quite similar. So the actual aim is to keep it person-centered and also to have a trauma-informed care model that we bring to our practice. So you may be asking, so what kind of things should I be looking out for then in that case in my own practice? How can I actually take some of this away with me to improve that engagement in that way? So here's some ways you can do it. When you're looking at the waiting room, for example, having appropriate signage like the sticker here, this is what we call the welcome here sticker. And you can actually apply for this through ACON. And if you do satisfy the different criteria in there, then you would be granted a sticker to actually help to ensure people who do identify that way as LGBTIQA+, that your clinic is a safe venue. We have this at Headspace and also over in CAMS. Having unisex bathrooms, for example, is another good option, good example of this as well too in the waiting room area. When it comes to our reception team there, having a friendly welcome from the staff there really helps to improve the ability of the young person or the older person even to make them feel that they actually are welcomed and helps to improve the overall experience of being in your clinic. When talking about paperwork, simple things like including a field there for a preferred name on pronouns, and also to having other gender options in there too, where the person can actually put down another option there if they don't fall into a male or female binary gender. That can also be very helpful. In our clinical encounters, making sure we're using appropriate language, for example, using our gender-neutral terms, like referring to a person's partner instead of assuming that it's going to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, can be of help. And the last area here I was going to draw upon was our referrals. Referrals themselves are also important because a lot of the times, if we do have a gender diverse person who does not actually feel comfortable with their actual gender and are seeking a change as well too, they will often have a preferred name in place of their legal name. And being able to communicate that will be able to alert your specialist or your other healthcare professional that this person prefers to be known as a different name to help to then build that rapport more quickly and more easily for that person that way. So this is a few simple kind of recommendations that I had in place. If you do want to find out more, of course, please check out the Rainbow Tick standards. The question that a lot of people do ask is that why should we offer inclusive healthcare? And the sad reality is that in the LGBTIQA plus communities, there is an increased amount of depression, anxiety, and also suicidality. There's also increased amounts of substance use, looking at specifically our smoking, alcohol, and also our other drugs in the community as well too. There's also increased amounts of sexually transmitted infections in the community, as well as increased instances of abuse as well in this community as a whole. Um, Sadly, though, um, in this same group, there is actually a reduction in the overall attendance of this group to primary care services, and therefore they don't actually receive a lot of our preventative care and our screening practice that we would normally do as GPs. When looking at the overall health of this group and their self assessed level of health and well-being, according to the private life studies number 3 that was done in 2019, just shy of 31% of LGBTIQA plus identifying persons rated their health as fair or poor. That's in comparison to only 14.7% of the general population who age-matched individuals who rated themselves as having poor or fair health in the same time. Similarly as well too, on the other side of the spectrum, 31.2% of LGBTIQA plus persons rate their health as being very good or excellent, which is much lower than the general population, where 56.4% rated their health as being very good or excellent. That's the reason why there is definitely a discrepancy between the two groups there. Before we then move on to our next topic of mental health, I was just going to take a little moment here to see if there's any questions. Were there any questions there, Mel, that came through?
Not at the moment, but I strongly encourage anyone that has any questions to please pop them into the question box. That would be really good, and we'll also have some time at the end as well to have a look at that. So thanks, Gordon.
Yep, no problems at all. Oh, well, let's dive into our next big area then, and that's going to be mental health. So when we oops, there we go, cool. Okay, so it's frozen there for a moment. When we're looking at mental health issues, this is actually the comparison between our non-LGBTIQA plus and our LGBTIQA plus identifying persons. So you can see here there's a decent discrepancy there, and it's quite a significant discrepancy as well too, based on this data here from the Victorian population study done in 2017. When looking at national LGBTIQA plus survey, they actually found that suicidal thoughts over a lifetime was much greater in persons who do identify as LGBTIQA plus, actually at almost 10 times greater than population. When looking at specific risk factors themselves include a lack of family acceptance, history of physical or sexual abuse, but also too, this is then compounded further if the person was also a refugee or asylum seeker. And all these things therefore relate to an increased severity of his presentations. When we are looking specifically at youth in general and mental health, okay, 1 in 4 young people aged between 16 to 24 years of age are living with a mental disorder, and 1 in 3 experience moderate to high levels of psychological distress. That's a huge number, isn't it? And most of us don't realize that because, sadly, 65% of young people did not seek help for their mental health. And knowing that, what about our LGBTIQA plus community? In the previous slides there, you saw that about 80% of Australians who identify as being LGBTIQA plus receive some form of bullying in the school community when they were younger. So this is definitely higher, and we'll see that in the next slide. Before we do shift to the next slide though, I also want to share with you a few statistics we got from Headspace in our local, Central Coast local health district. Looking at the 2 sites there, we do now have a third, but this is still actually back from our most recent data collected just before Christmas, and it showed that between Gosford and Lake Haven, we actually registered almost 1.5 times greater number of occasions of service than the national average per quarter, and this has been the case now for several quarters now. In that group as well too, about 35% of our clients identify as being gender diverse, and about 5% identify as being non-binary. When looking explicitly at our youth data, once again, this is now actually looking at the overall national levels there from this paper here, looking at the LGBTIQA plus health in Australia. LGBTIQA plus identifying youth are about 2.5 times more likely to have been diagnosed or treated for a mental health condition in the last 12 months. For this slide here, I've got in square brackets for you what our age-matched non-LGBTIQA plus identifying population registered. So let's look at the next set of data there. We see that that suicidality in LGBTIQA plus identifying young people are about 3 to 15% greater than the national average for age-matched individuals who do not identify as LGBTIQA plus. Suicidal ideations is about 5 to 18 times greater. Self-harm is 4 to 6.5 times greater than our age-matched non-LGBTIQ plus identifying persons. So you can see here the massive discrepancy between the two groups there. Looking at our specific conditions, depression is about 6 times greater, anxiety about 3 to 5.5 times greater, and in regards to our psychological distress, more than 3 times, LGBTIQ plus youth are more than 3 times more likely to score in the high to very high range for psychological distress. So you can see here that mental health is definitely a very big component in this area of healthcare. So you may actually ask a question then, why are youth more vulnerable in general? Well, that's because we can look at what we as young people trying to seek to do at different stages of our adolescent years. Early in adolescence, we often are very much consumed about the thoughts and worries about, are we actually normal? Because we're going through a massive state of change there in our bodies, going through puberty, having different hormones, causing massive amounts of changes in our body. And we always seek to understand and seek to actually be assured that we are normal so we can actually then fit in. Because the next stage beyond that, when we're going to our mid adolescent years, is where do I belong? And this is where it's really important to actually help young people seek acceptance in the community there. They are getting more kind of aware that they are different, they may have certain feelings, or they may have certain ways to express themselves as well too. They're trying to actually negotiate different relationships they have in the community as well too. And they really need to have that acceptance and that community to actually understand where they belong to seek that further reassurance. And then, when we move into our later stages of adolescence, we then actually have the stage of where am I going? What do I actually see myself doing in the future in regards to how do I want others to see myself? Because I now actually know a little bit more about who I am. How do I actually interact with those around me? What are my actual moral code and values? Where do they stand? How do I actually relate to other people around me? In regards to my work sphere, where do I actually want to go with my future? So you can see here there's a massive state of change going through our lives of young people between the early, middle, and late stages of adolescence. Furthermore, of course, social media have also been adding an extra layer of stress and complexity on top of this very tumultuous time for our young people. So you may then ask, okay, I understand that these people now have this increased health needs, but why don't they then seek help? Wouldn't that be the logical thing to do? And the answer to that question is because there are actually barriers to seeking help for young people as well. Many of them may not actually be aware of the different services in the community or the supports available, and many of them may actually have a lack of readiness to seek help because they may not perceive that they actually need help at a time because they actually may actually believe that everyone else around them are also going through the same things. There's also a fear of discrimination as well too, especially if they have had previous bad experiences from engaging with different services in the community. And there may also be a lack of LGBTIQA plus inclusive services for us to refer young people to, for places where they feel more comfortable seeking help that way. Sadly, there are also a decent amount of people in the community who are homeless or otherwise in unstable housing because they may have had a falling out with their family due to themselves being gender diverse. And with that, of course, comes our poverty. But even for the average person who's well loved by their parents and their families, trying to balance your actual education and work and trying to make all these balls stay in motion when we're juggling all of them can be very tricky for young people. And as a result, there can also be a massive barrier for them to seek help. Last but not least, negative experience in the past I mentioned before can most definitely impact on their engagement in their health care and engagement in primary care services in general. So if you do actually have a young person who may be doing it tough, what do we look out for? And I know that most of us here are healthcare professionals, most of us are GPs, so you actually know these things already. So as always, mental illnesses impacts on our thoughts, which feeds into our feelings and into our behaviors, and that loop is then closed because our behaviors then feeds back into our thoughts again. So therefore, when we're looking at this, we're looking at the overall function of the young person. If you do notice a change in the function there, ask yourself, is there something else happening here that I need to help my young person with? And with that in mind as well too, we can definitely use our DSM criteria or the ICD criteria to actually help us make a diagnosis that way to help them seek that extra help. But also as well too, please trust your gut feelings because that can often become the most sensible thing for us to do when we are looking at a young person's and knowing that something's just not right and making sure to seek help for them that way. If they can't advocate for themselves, we can as GPs. So therefore, what can we do? So what can we do is to actually help them build resilience. And this includes several things. For example, helping them actually develop a sense of social connectedness to both the LGBTIQA+ as well as the mainstream community as they prefer. And let them make the choice that way as well too. Or I can definitely keep both of them in action if they wanted to as well. Self-care and self-advocacy is also really important, and helping to actually to engage and look after them that way is really important in the young person's lives, and also shows them that we actually care about them, not just simply their condition or illnesses they may be presenting to your clinic with, that you actually care about them as a person, as a whole. Helping to refer them as well too to LGBTIQA+ inclusive professional help can be also really helpful, and we're going to come to that a little bit later in the presentation. But also as well too, support them when they are disclosing their LGBTIQA+ status in a safe environment is absolute paramount, because many of us who don't identify this way would actually have no understanding of the immense amount of stress that they will go through to actually say, do I actually come out, and to who do I come out? How will I be actually accepted in the community in that way as well too? And remember how they are always striving to fit in, like all of us do. This can be a major hurdle as well too in the process of being a true, authentic self. Last but not least there, if you have been to any of my other mental health presentations, I always talk about chimes. And chimes is something that I actually stole, or borrowed, I mean to say, I borrowed from our colleagues over in the psychiatry field. And this is an acronym that stands for these things. The C is for community, helping a person find their own community and build their own community helps to create that acceptance and really helps to engage the person in that way. H stands for hope, because if we did not have hope, we would not actually be able to get the energy or the stamina to then strive towards a better future for ourselves. Identity is really important, because if we are not able to become genuine and authentic in our own self, we will often struggle, but because we'll be putting on a mask on a daily basis, and that gets extremely, extremely exhausting. Motivation and meaning is the M in chimes, and that's where we actually have that's where we help the person develop a meaning for themselves that you help them give their oomph to keep them going. And that then, of course, feeds into the E, which is for empowerment. Every now and then, though, this person, okay, you're supporting so well in this way and already have covered their chime, okay, would actually need a bit of support, which is where the S comes in. Support itself can be from us ourselves as health professionals, can be from our colleagues in the community, but can also, of course, be from their own society as well too, and community. So that includes their own immediate family, their different sporting groups, different interests they may have as well too in that way, and be able to help them engage fully as a person in the community that way. So therefore, in the future there, I do encourage you to use this an acronym CHIMES for community, hope, identity, motivation/meaning, empowerment, and also support to consider a more holistic approach to caring for anyone who's coming to see you with a mental health issue or otherwise any other psychological distress. So if you do have a young person who's still not really sure about their sexual identity, it's okay. You can definitely help them actually and refer them to different services and different kind of resources to help them out. And it's okay as well too for a young person or even for an older person to actually explore that further by doing their own research, reaching out to other members in the community that they think may make more sense to them and help to actually understand themselves further that way. So on that note, we're going to shift into our next section, and I see that there's no questions at the present moment, so I'm just going to press
Not
on
so
then.
far.
Oh,
Yeah.
someone's a question? Yes.
Not so far, but if anyone has them, please pop them into the questions box. We love that
Yep.
component, and Gordon's really looking forward to those questions. So
Yeah, and don't stress about too, because we will have some time at the end of the presentation to then cover questions you may have by the end of the presentation. So don't worry about putting in right here, right now, or if they're in the box that haven't been answered yet. Okay. All right, yeah, I'm going to press ahead here because I know there's plenty to go through still, and I'd love to share with you a few other things as well too in my presentation. So one of the big roles that we have as GPs, of course, we want to do a lot of work in preventive health, because if we can actually prevent something from happening in the first place, then of course the health outcomes themselves actually are much better as well too. So let's dive into that now. So when we're looking at those who identify as being LGBTIQA+ in the community, this diagram itself shows the percentage of the population in each state who identifies that way. So you can see here that there is slightly more people who identify as being LGBTIQA+ on this east coast of Australia. When we are looking at the major areas or major elements of preventive health in this group of people, we often think about these main areas: contraception, fertility and pregnancy, looking at our sexual health, STI prevention, which we're going to dive into a little bit more later in this presentation, smoking, and also our alcohol and other drug use, and of course our cancer screening. So you can see here, this isn't actually all that different to any other person in the greater community. And that's the reason why we can definitely adapt what's been actually promoted in the Red Book for this use. Talking about our alcohol and other drugs, there was a study done back in 2019 looking at alcohol and other drugs use in LGBTIQA+ communities and comparing them to their heterosexual counterparts. And they found that LGBTIQA+ communities tend to use about 1.5 times more okay. Sorry, let me try again. They're probably about 1.5 times more likely to actually be smoking daily or to be drinking at harmful levels as well too. They are 9 times more likely to use inhalants, 3.9 times more likely to use methamphetamines, and 2.6 times more likely to use ecstasy. So therefore, it is definitely an area for us to keep in the back of our mind as well too when we are looking at things that we can help out and prioritize in our preventive care and preventive health management of people who do identify as LGBTIQA+. I do apologize for the next slide here because I know it's very busy, but it's more of a summary slide there to bring the different kind of areas together onto one single slide. Don't stress, I don't want you to read that all because we're going to dive into each section now. So, when we are talking more about persons who identify as being lesbian or bisexual women, contraception and fertility and pregnancy often does come up because if they are keen to if they're keen to start a family, of course, pregnancy itself wise can be probably an easier thing for them to do, since they can actually go have the parts already inside the body, and then all they need is actually to get a sperm donor, and given the right amount of counselling, they can actually access these services quite easily. But the thing though is that for some women in the community who identify this way, they may not actually want any they may not want any periods, and therefore they do often use our contraception, be it actually the pill or other means, or to like our LARCs, to actually help them manage their periods that way. So that's the reason why this area is still very important for lesbian and bisexual women. As I mentioned before, smoking and alcohol and other drugs use is something that goes through for all communities in the LGBTIQA+ community that way. When we are looking at our sexual health and STI prevention, most people get stumped here. Say, what do I actually ask for? What do I actually test for? And what do I actually advocate for safe sex? So STI side of things wise, we can definitely look at your human papillomavirus, herpes simplex virus, as well as bacterial vaginosis and Candida, because these are the common things which can be actually transmitted from person to person in this community. And this can be from their physical engagement, but also too from sharing of toys. Chlamydia in general is a little bit less common in this population compared to the non-LGBTIQA+ identifying community, and but also too, don't forget to explore other bloodborne viruses, especially if the person has other kinks in their sexual activities that way. In regards to advocating safe sex, it's a lot of the times it's looking at more the actual aspect of trauma. So, for example, talking about jewelry, etc., that they may be wearing, and helping them actually to remember to remove that prior to engaging in that way, can be helpful to avoid trauma to different parts of the body. This one here is so here's a graph there showing the different STIs and comparing the different groups in that way, going between your heterosexual, homosexual, as well as bisexual women. Another one too would be abuse and intimate partner violence. This one here is I know it's a very sensitive topic, and but looking at the statistics there is actually quite scary. 14% of bisexual women aged between 25 to 30 years of age have experienced in their lifetime sexual abuse, and about 25% of bisexual women have also experienced intimate partner violence as well too. So this is the reason why it's an important area for us to consider, and if that's the case, utilizing our white book to actually help us with that area to provide the right care for this population group. In regards to cancer screening there, of course, we still do the same protocols in the Red Book. So looking at our breast, cervical, as well as colorectal cancer screening there. I think it's also in this area here very important for us to acknowledge the barriers from the discomfort, from the gender dysphoria, but also to past traumas when we are looking at cervical screening and other vaginal examinations. As you all know, it is a very invasive procedure to have done. So therefore, if you can do other things to help them engage better, for example, seeking a self-collected swab for their for cervical screening, or otherwise getting to bring a support person in with them as well, that can really be helpful. For people who are actually transgendered as well, maybe using some more gender-neutral words for for their body parts, or asking them what they prefer to use to refer to their body parts, may actually be more helpful to engage them in that way. So communication is the key. So another one as well too is that for people who may become postmenopausal or otherwise are trans men, they will benefit from having at least 2 weeks of vaginal estrogen therapy prior to having their cycle screening done to help to make the actual process more comfortable for them. When we're looking at gay and bisexual men, of course, there are different things that pop up in this area here. Parenting, sperm donors, as well as surrogacy is one of the big areas that this group share, but this group is special to this group and not to many other groups who identify as being LGBTIQA+. Looking across Australia, there are different rules in different states and territories in regards to this area. But as a whole, in Australia, commercial surrogacy is illegal, but altruistic surrogacy is legal in most states. But there is a big caveat, and the big but here is there is not any protective kind of factors built into it to help and support the intending parents. So therefore, even if the person who is an altruistic surrogacy mother who carries the child for that period of time, they can still actually choose not to give the child up when the child is born, and therefore can actually lead to an immense amount of distress for the intending parents. That's the reason why a lot of gay couples would often go overseas to actually go through the whole process of surrogacy and to then bring back their child that way. But that also has its own set of dangers as well too, because they do open themselves up for a lot of other exploitations as well too, as some people may actually use that as a bargaining chip and blackmail material as well too. And extortion is not uncommon, unfortunately. I mentioned before already smoking and alcohol use and other drug use as well too, so that still stays the same. But another big area here is looking at our sexual health, STI prevention, which we're going to dive into in a moment, as well as our HIV PrEP and PEP as well use in this community. And then last but not least, of course, our cancer screening. And just the same as always, we're using our red book here again to help us guide us in our prostate cancer screening, testicular cancer, as well as our colorectal cancer and skin cancer as well. Something that I realize here is actually not on here, but it's very important for our preventive health, especially in gay and bi men, is our vaccinations. So you may have been wondering, so why do we actually offer Gardasil to both males and females in high school on the current vaccination schedule? And that's because for gay men as well, not just for our heterosexual communities, but for gay men, your HPV is actually one of the actual leading causes of colorectal cancer in the gay community, or or by men or men who have sex with men who may not identify that way. So that's the reason why it's helpful. But another vaccination as well too that we can also keep in the back of our mind there is, of course, our Hep A. Hepatitis A, as you can remember, is an oral fecal transmission, and if you are going to be doing any anal play, then of course if a partner does have Hep A, then of course you can also pick it up that way as well too. That's the reason why Hep A is also really important in this community as well. When we are looking at trans, non-binary, and diverse persons who are still gender fluid, this diagram here gives us a few more pointers as to how do we actually conceptualize where they fit, and therefore help us understand where they are in regards to different services that we may be provided for them. So really important for us to remember that sex as a term is what we actually are assigned at birth based on our sexual chromosomes and expression that way through our physical means, whereas gender identity itself is actually our internal experience of gender and what we then portray to the rest of the world. And that's where our gender expression comes in. So therefore, So therefore, when we are looking at this population group in the LGBTIQA plus community, it's important for us to then remember that they also have their own peculiarities in regards to what else they will hold dear to them and special to this group. And a lot of that comes down to our gender identity and expression, and therefore looking at our social affirmations and gender affirmation therapy and care as well too. And that's a whole separate area which is going to be a bit too big for us to cover tonight, and that's the reason why I'm going to flag this, that it's going to be covered in the next presentation by Dr. Yolani Goodyear in April, as you heard at the very start of the presentation. Smoking and alcohol and other drugs use is still very prevalent in this community, and sexual health and STI prevention is also important for us to remember as well too, not to mention our cancer screening. And but the biggest tip I can give you here is that when you're looking at trans, non-binary, and persons who are diverse, very important for us to then remember to revert back to our protocols for the person's sex, not their gender expression. So that's the reason why it's so important for us to remember to ask that and find out, because if we don't ask, we don't know, and we can be missing a whole area of prevention and screening that we could do to look after our person who identifies as trans, non-binary, or gender diverse in that way. Cool. I'm just going to now play another video for you. It's going to load for me. Come on, here it goes. Good.
I'm gay, but I'm not a fashionista.
I'm gay, but I don't really prefer hookup culture.
Soy gay, pero no quiero tener relaciones con un hombre heterosexual ni quiero convertirlos o voltearlos o esas cosas.
I'm gay, but you wouldn't exactly call me promiscuous.
I'm still not good at talking to guys.
I'm gay, but I'm not interested in your other friend simply because she's also gay.
But I know nothing about Madonna or Lady Gaga.
I'm not into Britney Spears.
Soy gay, pero no quiero vestirme de mujer ni me siento mujer.
I'm gay, but I still don't know how to dress myself.
I'm not into designer labels. But I don't like to brunch.
I'm gay, but I don't want to be your gay best friend.
But I don't want to give you a makeover.
But I'm not a gym rat.
But I don't like the stereotypical cut body.
Soy gay, pero no fui violado de niño ni nadie abusó de mí.
I'm gay, but I still go to church and I'm religious.
But I've never seen an episode of Will and Grace.
Never seen an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race.
But I don't think I've ever seriously Z-snapped at anybody.
But I don't like drinking very much. I've actually never been drunk.
I'm gay, but my main identity isn't just being gay.
I'm gay and I love studying different languages.
And I'm in choir.
Soy gay y me encanta ir a bailar todos los días.
And I like to write poetry.
And I do love a good brunch.
And I do consider myself fashionable.
I'm gay and I love using the word fabulous.
And sometimes I do say, hey girl.
Oops.
And I have 4 tattoos.
15 tattoos.
And body piercings. I'm gay and I like to shoot guns.
And I'm really into archery and I love to hike.
And I like to do parkour.
And I play badminton 3 times a week.
And I came out at the age of 18.
I am gay and most of my friends aren't.
And I'm colorblind.
And I have experienced bullying in my life.
And I have bipolar disorder.
And I'm also sensitive.
And I curse like a sailor.
And I graduated valedictorian of my high school.
I'm gay and I'm a filmmaker.
And I'm an illustrator.
And I'm a writer.
And I'm an actor.
Soy gay, soy periodista y es lo que me gusta hacer.
And I'm a chef. And I own a dog care business.
A fitness trainer. And I'm becoming a therapist.
I'm gay and I love cats.
And I love dogs.
And I like pop music.
Huge fan of Beyonce.
Britney Spears.
Lady Gaga. And Mariah Carey. And Whitney Houston. And Dolly Parton. And Christina Aguilera. And yeah, I love Barbara Streisand.
And I'm a huge comic book nerd.
And I love playing Pokemon.
I'm gay and I'm obsessed with RuPaul's Drag Race.
I'm gay and I like the Kardashians.
Love Will and Grace.
And one of my favorite pastimes is falling into a YouTube black hole.
I'm gay and I'm from Great Britain.
I'm gay and I'm a proud black man.
And I'm half Mexican and Native American.
And I'm Chinese and Vietnamese.
And I'm from the UK.
And soy mexicano.
And I'm transgender.
And also two-spirit.
And I like to show off my non-binary male body.
I'm gay and I've only been in one relationship.
And I believe in monogamy.
And I'm poly.
Soy gay y estoy con mi pareja desde hace 13 años y estamos casados.
And I love body hair.
And I'm into the leather community. And I want to get married one day.
And I'm also really excited to be a father one day. And I also have a great relationship with my dad.
I'm gay and I'm an uncle.
And I'm a brother.
And I'm a son.
I'm gay and I'm an activist.
And I think everyone should have equal rights.
And I'm a huge feminist. I'm gay and I advocate
for safe sex. And because I'm on PrEP, I'm not afraid to have sex with someone based on their HIV status.
I'm gay and I try to educate myself about the other letters in LGBT.
And I want to see better queer characters on TV, and not just ones that look like me.
And I know that our community still has a lot of work to do, but we're still beautiful.
I'm gay and I'm not afraid to let people know.
I'm gay and I love it.
And I would not have it any other way.
I'm gay and I'm really glad I'm gay.
Cool. So as you can see there, it is important for us not to make assumptions about gender diverse persons. And it's our role as GPs to keep an open mind and be able to deliver this, oops, okay, in order to deliver inclusive care for gender diverse persons in our practice. Just going to dive into our next area now, which is going to be sexual health. And I believe I can see here there are a few questions already popped up. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. I can see that there was a few comments there about
Oh,
volume.
good.
Hope you can hear it
Yes, there's a
now.
lovely complimentary one there.
Yeah, thank you.
You're saying that you're covering everything, so questions haven't come through yet. But
Yep.
if anyone has one, please place them in the questions box, and we'll get them at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're in our second last area now, so we're almost there. We're going to talk about sexual health, and I know as GPs, a majority of you as GPs would actually know this area inside out and backwards. So I'm not going to to teach you to actually this too much in this area, I don't think, but it's still important to revise a few things. So let's dive into this now. So SDI protocol side of things wise, and what do we think about our SDI management side of things? Well, let's look at the data first. The Kirby Institute annual surveillance report, the latest one was back in 2018, I believe, and it showed that chlamydia is still by far the most notifiable SDI in the community. And gonorrhea rates are going up. And interestingly, syphilis is making a comeback. So, and especially in indigenous communities as well. When we're looking at STIs, I know that everyone here would have seen this document and probably have referred to it many times. I love it still, and I still have it as part of my actual toolbox on my desk there for myself to refer back to every now and then to actually make sure I haven't missed anything. So screening side of things, of course, is going to be the most important thing that we do as GPs. But question is, who do we screen? So screening side of things wise, we look at young persons, indigenous persons, men who have sex with men. I use that term there because not all men who have sex with men identify as being gay. So that's the reason why this is a more inclusive term for this population group. But also as well too, of course, our sex workers, our travelers and fly-in, fly-out workers, our culturally and linguistically diverse persons, because they may not always understand the different protocols, because they may not actually have grown up or lived in Australia for that long to actually have that as a benefit. But of course as well too, people who are in custodial settings. If you actually are looking at our sexual health history, of course, we teach our medical students how to use the 5 Ps to help to make sure we cover all our bases. I went to a presentation last week about this actually, about taking sexual history from gender diverse persons, and one of the tips I got from the sexual health physicians and those who work in the sexual health clinics is that it's really important for us to normalize the act of taking a sexual health history. And if you can actually give context to why you're asking, what you're asking, is often be able to get much more truthful answers as well too. And keeping it professional and more objective also helps a lot. The other tip that I actually didn't know about, which they shared that night as well too, was that one way for them to actually get around the different body parts, should they actually have a person who may not be comfortable using those body parts as well too, is to ask, so what bits did you have, what bits does your partner have, and how do the parts come together when you actually engage in that way? And that can often cover all bases. So, and keeping it in a very non-stigmatized and gender-neutral way. So, important tip, of course, is to use our non-judgmental language. When we're actually looking at, so what do we screen for the different groups there? And I'm sure you remember as well too, when you open that booklet up, you do actually have the different kind of groups there and kind of what they recommend as well too, and how often we should be screening for these areas, and also so too what samples do we actually take as well for the actual screening process. I think when I'm talking to a lot of my friends who are in the LGBTIQ+ community, they mentioned that the biggest kind of pitfall that a lot of people have in the community when they're not used to looking after men who have sex with men is to make sure we do seek samples from multiple sources. That is from the actual urine, from their throat swab, from their rectal swab to test for your chlamydia and gonorrhea. And there's recently been more of a talk as well too, if you do find chlamydia or gonorrhea in the rectal area especially, then of course looking for your mycoplasma genitalium as well too, which often can be missed. With this in mind as well too, okay, what happens if you do find an STI? This is where our Australian STI guidelines come in handy, and this website is absolute gold. Diving into different kind of areas, different STIs, you can look them up, and it has a really clearly laid out system of how do we actually treat the different STIs, what medication, what protocols, is it actually as simple, is it more complex, and therefore what medications should be used, and the guidelines themselves are really clear, very easy to engage with. Of course, don't forget to use your kind of contact tracing protocols as well too. According to that resource there, this is the actual the period of time we should be contact tracing for, and these are the websites we can use as well too. The Let Them Know website is kind of more for general population. The Drama Down Under is definitely geared more towards men who have sex with men, and Better to Know is more geared towards our Indigenous community. Ending HIV is a great website because there's lots of information there on HIV prevention, but also as well to your STIs. And Positive Life is an app designed for people who have actually tested positive to HIV, and helping them actually giving them support they deserve and helping them with a diagnosis that way. Final thing I was going to say about STI screening is to also remember the time frames. Not everyone seroconverts immediately, and majority of times they don't. And so therefore being mindful of how long a lag time there may be between the actual exposure and the actual seroconversion, and therefore the diagnosis, is also really important. When we're looking at HIV a bit further, we can see that unfortunately, in our Indigenous community, they are being overrepresented as well. And in Australia, currently, there are about 28,000 people living with HIV in Australia. This is the natural history of what happens with HIV, and the red line itself shows our HIV RNA copies per mil in the plasma, and this one here is looking at the CD4 count, the blue line here, you can see. As the disease process progresses, they would actually drop in the CD4 lymphocyte count, but rise in the HIV RNA copies. One of the major breakthroughs that we've had in recent times is, of course, the use of PrEP. But so PrEP itself stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis, and the big cash cry here is U equals U, which means if the person is on PrEP or other treatment for the HIV and they are therefore having an undetectable viral load, undetectable means they cannot transmit the actual virus, therefore undetectable equals untransmissible. And you can find out more as well too about PrEP on the actual Ending HIV website and use a toolkit there to work out if a person would benefit from this or not. People often do get very confused as well too between PEP, which is our post-exposure prophylaxis, and PrEP, our pre-exposure prophylaxis. I went to the PrEP update last night from the ROCGP, and one of the things they use to help people conceptualize this further is to compare it to PEP being like the morning after pill, whereas your PrEP is like your contraception you actually give to a person to avoid them from falling pregnant. So that's the kind of way we use them. The reason why I included PrEP here so too is because it is offered by EDs and also by sexual health clinics, but interestingly, GPs officially can't actually prescribe PrEP unless you have done extra training to become a S100 provider and prescriber. And just for completeness sake as well too, of course, treatment as a prevention as well too, that is treating people who have already tested HIV positive, is also another way for us to end HIV. When we are looking at PrEP, okay, PrEP is our pre-exposure prophylaxis. This here is a once-a-day medication that you can take, and there are many ways of taking it as well too. And you can get this from the GP. Any doctor in Australia can now prescribe PrEP. And also so you can get it online for those who actually may not actually feel comfortable seeing a GP to actually get this prescription, or otherwise are not comfortable engaging with their local pharmacy to pick up the medication that way. And this is taken by HIV negative people to avoid infection. And the medication that we use is Truvada, but in the generic form, because this is now the only version that is under authority and has a streamlined script available on your program. Just to take a small step here back to look at PrEP. If you were actually working in a hospital ED, then this is often the protocol to assess the level of risk the person may have been exposed to, and therefore to determine if the person would need to have PrEP or not. However, if you're looking at PrEP, a pre-exposure prophylaxis, this is a fantastic flow chart and document to help you out in the process there. PrEP itself-wise is I know it looks quite daunting looking at this whole thing here on one single page, but if you cover each section there and go step by step, again, step 1, do this, step 2, do that kind of thing, you will actually find this is such a very user-friendly document. Majority of people who do start PrEP may complain of having a bit of nausea, might have a little bit of headache, and also as well too, before we do start PrEP, it is also really important for us to make sure the person has decent renal function. But apart from that, it is very safe medication in general. Flipping that document over, page 2 has the table here on the top, looking at HIV risk. So who actually would benefit from having PrEP? And also what do we actually do for our monitoring at different points in time when caring for the person in that way. There's also advice there in regards to patient education and also about starting PrEP, but also when we do stop PrEP, how do we do so? This video here was one of the videos that was presented last night in the RACGP PrEP update. I'm not going to play this actually because of time, but you can definitely check this out afterwards. Why? Because I summarized the findings there on the next slide there. And so, how do we use PrEP? Okay, so if you are having daily PrEP, you'll be having it every single day, as the name suggests. The aubergine there, or the eggplant there, is the little key here is that is when they are engaging sexually with another person there. Okay, so this way here you can see that you're having it every single day, and therefore gives a lot of people the peace of mind because they know they're going to be protected and they're going to be fine. And this is the preferred guideline for all people who are both cis and also transgendered men. In regards to on-demand PrEP, you can actually use it this way, having 2 tablets 2 to 4 hours before sexual activity, and then continuing on after the last time they had sexual activity by another 2 days, having 1 pill per day in that 48-hour period. And after that, they can then stop it, and they are going to be still protected. This is another way of using PrEP as well too. So for people who actually are terrible at taking tablets, you can actually have as little as 4 tablets per week and still get adequate protection. So they promote the use of our T and our S's for our Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday as your ongoing regime in that way. If you are going to be stopping PrEP, just make sure you actually are stopping 48 hours after the last time you had your sexual activity, and also as well too to make sure you had a tablet for each of the 24-hour period then. So with all that in place as well too, how do we take this topic further? If this presentation have really appetite to find out more, definitely so. Find out more about what's actually other different events available on the calendar for LGBTIQA plus identifying persons. So this is a quick little summary of the different kind of events that normally happen in every year. Of course, we have just had Mardi Gras, which is this one here down here. And also as well too, to actually make sure you actually are aware of different services to help to engage persons who do identify as LGBTIQA+. So Kids Helpline and Headspace will probably be my first two go-tos for our LGBTIQA+ identifying youth. In regards to our adults and young people together, we can definitely look at our Head to Health. On that website there, if you have not been on it already, on the far right hand side there is a tab for all the services that we can access in the community in Australia, and that's a fantastic resource there because it compiles them all into one single page. Very, very handy indeed. When we're looking at ending HIV, there's been a lot of work being done by the ACON team as well as the Ending HIV team. And also, of course, ASHM and our Sdi Guidelines themselves, they do also do a lot of work in this area as well. So I do encourage you to check that out. If you are keen to find out more about transgender medicine, the OSPATH course is brilliant. I've done it myself, and it definitely has given me a much greater understanding of what things to look out for to actually support our transgender community. And last but not least, remember how I mentioned before that alcohol and other drugs are unfortunately heavily featured in this population group? Well, this website here called Your Room is a New South Wales health website. It's absolutely brilliant. Great resource for yourself as a clinician, but we can also refer your patients or their family to it to find out more to help to improve our harm minimization practices for dealing in this area here. Yep. So with that in mind, too, I'm going to play another video for you. And when it loads up.
Yes.
Cool. I hope you enjoyed that video because it's one of my favorites, because it reminds us that it's important for us all to be able to support LGBTIQA plus persons, because they too, like every single other person in the community, go through ups, go through downs, and they're equally deserving to actually have a full life. And if we can dismantle the discrimination in the community that they face and allow them to actually live and enjoy a full life, then we have done a good job in our community. So on that note, we're going to now go into the final area. I'm going to hold the questions until that point. There you go, because we're going to dive into our support services for LGBTIQA+ youth in the community. In the Central Coast area, support services for youth, we actually look at our -18, which is a youth division of youth division there of Q Life, which is a peer support program available for LGBTIQ+ identifying persons, as well as our 2010 group as well too down here. When we talk about counselling as well too, there are actually LGBTIQ+ specific kind of counselling that you can receive from groups like Pride Counselling, and that's the phone numbers there for you to access that service as well too if you were keen for that. All of this information will be coming out to you afterwards, because Mel assured me that this is all going to be available online after the presentation in the library section there. So I mentioned before already, -18 is the youth division of Q Life, and this is what they actually do. They provide peer support and referrals as well too for people who are wanting to talk about a range of issues, including their sexuality, identity, gender, bodies, feelings, and relationships as well too. So yeah, free call number as well too. This is very helpful. I mentioned before at the very start there that on the Central Coast, we don't have any gender-specific clinics. This is the one here available down in Sydney called the Gender Centre, and they deal exclusively with gender-diverse people, supporting people who are hoping to actually make the transition from one gender to another as well too, and everything else in between. 2010 I mentioned before, this one here is a statewide service for young persons who are keen for support in housing, mental health, counselling, as well as social support. Headspace, I mentioned before, is one of the groups that I spend some time working for as well on during my week, and we now currently have 3 offices: Gosford, Lake Haven, and also as well to Wyong, which just opened just before Christmas last year. And if you're up in the Newcastle area, Cessnock, Maitland, and Newcastle are the different offices available in that local health district. The Maple Leaf Clinic is the gender centre based up in Newcastle. They are over in Hamilton East, and they provide services for transgendered as well as gender-diverse young persons under the age of 24 years of age. So that's how you get in touch with them as well too. And ACON, of course, they do actually have what's called Trans Hub. Fantastic resource for the people who are hoping to transition from one gender to another. Really good resources, really great community as well too of people on there, which helps support people who are in that who are making that switch and change in their lives there. And lastly, of course, and not least, our child and adolescent mental health services, and that's what we call CAMS, and it's where our colleague Olivia works. She is the GP liaison officer, and she's absolutely brilliant. If you do have any questions or do want to actually engage with the team there, bouncing ideas of her, she loves having a chat, loves sharing what she knows, and she knows so much about how to support young persons in the local area. So I highly recommend that as well too. If you haven't already engaged with the team there, for one of your young people under your care who are having mental health difficulties in a more severe range there, definitely make sure you pick up the phone and give Olivia a call. And on that note, I want to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Really appreciate your time. There was just so much information in there and really informative, and we're getting lots of really positive comments coming through, so it's much appreciated. I've just got a question regarding Headspace. How's the waiting list for that going? Is it
I thought someone would ask this question. Yep, so at the present moment wise, probably seeing a psychologist is where the bottleneck is at the present moment. So for Gosford, it's about a 6 to 8 week wait, and in regards to seeing the team up in Lake Haven has about a 12-week wait at the present moment. So yes, having just opened Wyong, I do hope that this is going to help as well and be able to shorten the actual waiting time for people. That being said though, if they are actually referred to the service, we do have our youth engagement officers there called a YAT team, the Youth Access Team, and they basically act as the case manager for the young people to help them engage with the service. So they're not going to be left waiting and waiting and waiting, not talking to anybody. They will still be able to be engaged in some way, just not actually seeing the actual psychologist until that point in time there. What you can do as GPs in community, if you are referring a young person to Headspace, is to please, if you can, create a GP mental health care plan for a young person prior to the referral and setting that through as well. That will be really helpful because it will help to streamline the whole process. Otherwise, they can most definitely see myself or otherwise my colleague, Dr. Bronwyn Morrison, who works up in Lake Haven, to then get that document assembled. But if you can do that for me beforehand, that would be amazing.
Fantastic, thank you. And just another question about finding resources online and also local groups to support a transgender patient aged around that 12-year mark.
Yep, sure. Being 12 years of age is definitely a little bit on the younger end of the spectrum there. That being said, though, definitely referring them to see the Headspace team is actually really helpful. All the clinicians there are very comfortable talking about and dealing with different issues that young people do have in regards to transitions, etc., and also different aspects of the LGBTIQA plus expression as well too. Yep, we can definitely help with that as well too. Other resources wise, you can definitely refer a young person to Maple Leaf Clinic directly. We here on the Central Coast, majority of our young people do tend to head that way because they are a youth-specific service, whereas the Gender Centre down in Sydney, down in Annandale, they deal with both young people as well as older people as well too, like adults in the community who do identify that way. So that's why that is also helpful thing to do. I mentioned before as well too, TransHub, that's also another great avenue as well too. If the actual young person or their family are keen to find out more, they can often find a lot more information through that site there, and you do actually have a very strong peer support mentality there as well too.
Great, thank you so much. And I think that's about all the questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Olivia? Would you like to add anything before we leave?
Thank you, Mel. I just really want to thank Dr. Lau. This has been an amazing presentation, Doctor. I have learned so much from what you said. Even just as a nurse, I have learned an awful lot. But the important thing is that when we do get young persons referred to us by GP, at least we have an idea on what we need to look for. And I can always liaise back with the GP and say, look, doctor, can we have a screening for this or for that? Sometimes young people, when they come to us, they open up and say, yes, I'm sexually active, or yes, I'm having relationships and I'm unsure if I have an STI or something. So it's really important that then I can liaise with the GP, the referring GP, and say, look, doctor, the young person is disclosed this or this. Are we able to do some screening or testing? So thank you very much for that, Dr. Lau. That's been very, very informative.
Thank you very much. I was going to give people a few more opportunities here to ask any questions you may have. There's no silly questions, only silly answers on my side here. So please, you can ask me absolutely anything you want to ask me.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you both so much for being here. It's so wonderful to have people like you working in this space, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us tonight, and the content's been very cohesive. So I've just got one more coming through. I'm going to lean in because my eyesight's declining again. Amazing presentation, important to every GP to watch. Gordon, I'd love you to present this to the CCLHD Clinical Council, which is a great idea, and that's from Karen Douglas. So
thank you, Karen.
Great. Yeah. Appreciate everyone's time for being here tonight. Thank you all for being here. If you've got any questions, you can
I
forward
think I
them to
just
me.
had another question
Yep.
here just come through. So kind of there's another question here. When I was a registrar working in Sydney in the 1990s, it was heartbreaking to see patients living in their life as a submersive way, kind of often extremely marginalized and often with a high incidence of suicide and HIV and Hep C for all. There is a long way to go, but I am heartened to the changes and support services that are now available. And I agree with you, Jill, completely. It's definitely kind of a great time for us to be working as GPs to be able to support people who are kind who do identify as being LGBTIQA+. So yes, for sure. If there's no more questions here, I was going to leave you a parting quote, and the parting quote goes this way: diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is an action, and belonging is the outcome. So I hope you all have a lovely night tonight. For those of you who are keen for the different resources that I have used for this presentation, they appear, if I can get it to shift over, here you go, the different resources I've used for this presentation tonight. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lau. Thank you.
Yes, and a copy of all the presentation and resources and a recording of this will be in the Education Library to reference afterwards or any other time that you feel that you need to. So thank you everyone for being here tonight. Thank you very much, Gordon and Olivia. Really appreciate your time. I think I've just seen another question come through. Gordon, did you want to read that one?
Oh no, it's a thank you message there. So thank you, Georgia. Thank you for being here, for the support.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Have a lovely evening, everybody. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good night.